struggle is real. In fact, in the first few years of a small business, they encounter a lot of struggles. Some have a more difficult time than others. And of course, when you throw COVID into the mix, it's difficult for everybody, right? In fact, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in the first year of business, 20% of businesses, small businesses, fail. In the first 5 years, 50% fail. And that's the group I typically hone in on and work with so that they can overcome those challenges and not be one of the statistics. And then in the first 10 years of a business, 80% of small businesses fail. Did you know about these astounding statistics? And do you know why? They have a lot of struggles that they encounter during those first few years. And I'm going to talk about 9 of those today. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm also going to talk about how to fix them. So if you're interested in this, stick with me and let's get to it. Hi, I'm Vicki Carroll, previously Vicki O'Neill, founder of Ken K Marketing, and I work with small business owners who struggle with challenges in their business, in particular marketing, customer service, and sales, and help them overcome those objectives with marketing strategies and tactics in order to take that next level in their business and not become one of those statistics. Let's go ahead and start with the first one. The first struggle is finding customers. Now, this isn't just for small businesses. In fact, international brands still struggle with finding new customers, and they have teams dedicated to that alone. So you're not alone in that regards, but the struggle's even bigger, especially when you're not a household name like those international brands are. So it comes down to, how do we fix this problem? This comes down to really understanding and knowing who your ideal customer is. I talk about this in almost all of my videos, so I will include a link in the description for the video on how you can create your ideal persona. So if that's something that you still need to do, I highly recommend that you do that alone. Will take your business to the next level so that you're not spraying and praying with your marketing messaging. The second biggest challenge is increasing brand awareness. These big brands, the international brands, they had those struggles at the beginning as well, but they had people dedicated to actually focusing on that. And when you have the right strategies in place, then it makes it a little bit easier, even though it's still going to be a challenge over time. With the right strategy in place, it definitely will make that easier. And that comes down to knowing who your ideal customer is and understanding what goals you're trying to achieve so that you can create the appropriate content and messaging to help navigate that process from awareness to purchase and retention. So here's how to fix it. There are many ways that you can fix increasing your brand awareness. So really it depends on your industry and your situation and really your network of people. But I'll touch on 3 in particular. The first one is blogging. With your blog, be sure to share that on the different platforms where you have a presence and you can connect with your customers. If they don't know that it's there, it's probably going to be a challenge for them to even find it. So once you create your blogs, find ways to share that information with your ideal customers. What I do, and I advise a lot of my clients to do, is to create an image, and you can use canva.com to create this. If you go ahead and create an image and take like an abstract out of that blog article, and it could be a quote or it could be the most compelling sentence in the middle of that blog post, and create an image that you can then share with your target audience. It's really going to be an attention grabber. The second thing is to be a guest on someone's podcast. Now, this isn't just on any podcast. Look at the podcast either in your industry or who are serving your target customers. When you can find those podcasts that are going to best serve you, your brand, and your customers, reach out to the podcast host and request that you become a guest. A lot of times they're not going to say no, and sometimes there's podcast guests that are actually looking for guests to have on their podcast. So it might be a really good fit and a win-win for both of you. The third thing is to consider adding video to your marketing strategies if you aren't already. If you are and you're not real consistent, or you're not building your audience on YouTube or your website or wherever you're hosting those videos, then I suggest that you put a strategy together for increasing the amount of time and effort that you spend on creating videos, because that is something that's going to definitely capture someone's attention. And depending on how you're communicating that message and what your call to action is, that's what's really going to hone in on you. And it also helps them get to know you as a person as well. The third most common struggle for small businesses is building an email list. Your email list is going to be your biggest asset outside of your employees and outside of your customers. But you're really going to need an email list in order to stay connected to the people who have trusted you with their information and to communicate with them on a regular basis. So you definitely want to focus on how you can increase your email subscription list. So let's talk about that. There are a lot of different ways that your ideal customers can subscribe to your email list. And a way that you can do that is through creating webinars. They'll sign up for webinars as long as it's going to solve a pain point or help make their life easier or give them something new that they hadn't already considered. Also look at lead magnets. Those are documents or resources or tools or tips that you've created and made available on your website. And in order for them to access that document, they need to provide their first name and email address. This is information that is a little deeper than a blog post. So a lot of times I recommend to my clients that they create a lead magnet to support their blog so that it's taking that blog a step further and keeping them engaged, and it also gets them added to your email list. I will note that I never recommend, in fact, I discourage anyone buying an email list. It's not reliable, and you're taking a huge risk in that hitting you and your company against the search engines and really contradicting what you had intended from the start. So don't buy an email list. The fourth most common challenge that small businesses encounter is how to generate leads. This typically, if you have a marketing and sales team, is the marketing's responsibility. The key is getting sales involved in that process to determine what are the criteria that marketing needs to establish and follow in order to quantify an incoming lead as good quality. So I always recommend that marketing and sales work together. And what they can do is create the criteria that's going to really match the ideal customer and how they are going to purchase from you, what their budget is, what is their time in making a decision to buy, what geography are they in if that's an important criteria for you. I created a video on why lead quality is important, and I will include that right here is a link that you can access, and I'll also include a link in the description so that you can watch that and get a better understanding of that entire lead qualifying process and why it's so critical. One important tip on this subject is to look at your website. Do you have enough locations on your website and the different landing pages for someone to submit their information and be a part of your email community? If not, what you can look at is understanding where you currently have those forms that they can fill out, and then identifying where you should have some additional forms included. You've probably been on one of those websites where you've gone to exit the screen and all of a sudden you get a pop-up that says, hey, wait a minute, don't forget to join this, or don't forget to subscribe, or don't forget to register. That is something that you definitely need to have on your website if you don't already, so that you can make sure that you're giving them that one last opportunity to join your email community before they leave. Once they've left, the chances of them coming back are even more difficult. So don't forget to have that there so that you can capture their attention and keep them engaged with your brand, and then you'll stay top of mind for when they're ready to make a decision. The fifth challenge of small businesses is delighting customers. It's hard enough to find them, and then it's even harder to keep them. The thing with this is that it's important to over-deliver and over-service in order for them to stay with you. And that's just choosing to delight in your customers. I know it seems challenging to continue to find ways to engage with existing customers. After all, it took a lot of time and effort to get them to buy from you, right? And now it's time to focus on keeping them as a customer. I know it sounds very challenging. Here's the thing though, it can be fun. So why not make it fun? Look at your top customers, reach out to them, actually have a conversation. Do it via Zoom, do it via phone call, but don't do it via email because you're not going to get the same context of the meaning of what they're talking about. And also, when you're actually talking to someone, you can engage in the conversation and ask follow-up questions that maybe you wouldn't have thought to include in an email. So look at things that you can ask them, like, why did they choose you? Why do they stay with you? What can you do to include them in the process of building your brand and helping increase awareness? The goal here is to help them get to that point of them wanting to say, again, shouting your name from the rooftops into why others like them should choose you. Ultimately, your customers are your marketers, so why not give them a plethora of things to say about you that's going to help make your job as a marketer or your marketing teams easier to get the message out to more people like them. The sixth biggest challenge of small businesses is hiring the right people. As small business owners, we don't have time to constantly find new people to replace someone who may not have been a good fit and you thought maybe they would develop and become a better fit, but really in the end, it just didn't work out. Then you spend more time trying to find people to interview, going through that process, and you end up spending hours upon hours finding yet another person to fit a particular role and just hope that they stay. I'm going to make this really easy. And the reason being is because it can be really easy. I look at this as hiring people can be very time consuming and it can be very costly because it's taking you away from your job and things that you need to be doing. Meanwhile, everything that that person's supposed to be doing is also getting put on hold and everything starts backing up, right? So what I recommend to my clients is to approach the hiring process the same way that you approach hiring customers. And hiring customers, I mean finding customers. So just as you go through and create your ideal customer avatar and identify all of those criteria that are the perfect, best fit customers for your solution, do the same thing with hiring people. Look at that role, and instead of just writing a generic job description or copying and pasting from a similar job description and then modifying it for your particular situation, actually sit down and think about what is the ideal person or what are the characteristics that I want this person to have in this role, and then write a job description or a profile of what that looks like. There are no rules in saying how you should go about finding new employees, so sometimes you just have to make up your own rules and do what works best for you. And if you haven't had luck with finding the right people for a particular role, maybe it's time to make a change. Why not try this? The 7 most common challenge for small businesses is managing their workflow. This is something that's common, again, across all types of businesses, but I will admit it's probably more common with small businesses only because the number of people in place is smaller and you've got everybody wearing multiple hats. So you've got various people doing different tasks. And because of that, there's not a whole lot of time for developing a process or identifying what that ideal workflow looks like, but it will make your team, your company, your processes more efficient and keep any ideal customers or any customers from seeing any behind the scenes situations that maybe you wouldn't want them to see. So the solution to this is to identify ways that you and your team can collaborate and identify where any breakdowns are happening in any processes. And that could be between employees, it could be between timeframes that people are working, it could be locations, whatever those gaps are in any process, where there's a breakdown, where there's a slowdown in getting a response time. Have your team come together and first identify what those are, not pointing any blame at anybody, but just really being honest and understanding where are the roadblocks. Once you've identified those roadblocks, then you can have those conversations with the individuals who impact where those roadblocks are so that you can better understand what it is. This can happen through one-on-one conversations. If you want to do an employee survey, I'm not a real big fan of that, but if that is easier for you based on your situation, then it is a way to get feedback from the most people that you can. Once you've identified any commonalities, then I encourage you, in fact, I highly recommend that you get people involved in the problem to also become involved in the solution. When people feel like they're being identified as a problem or creating problems or holding the company back, then it's going to create more problems if you don't include them in the solution. In fact, ask them what would work best for them and the situation and see what happens. The worst thing that can happen is that you just decide that it's too costly or it doesn't work with the systems or that person's already overwhelmed. And it just helps you identify what isn't going to work so everybody can focus on what will work. The eighth biggest challenge of small businesses is strategic planning. The biggest reason why this doesn't happen in small businesses is, again, it's due to lack of time, lack of resources, and lack of focus. As a business owner, you are focused on your passion, why you started your business. And the last thing you probably want to do is actually focus on the strategic direction of the company because you have too many things on your plate as it is. The thing is, it's extremely important that you look at the long-term viability of your company based on the current state and the desired state and come up with that plan in between so that you don't become a 50% statistic or an 80% statistic after 10 years. So it's really important that you do that. So let's talk about that for a minute. The best thing you can do is write down, if you don't already have it, your short-term and long-term goals as a company. And then if you don't already have it mapped out, identify what needs to happen on the short-term plan and the long-term plan. So here's where I'm going with this. You'll want to start with the long-term plan, and then ultimately you're going to back into the short-term plan. And then from there, you're going to back into today. So let's just say in 10 years, being your long-term goal, you want to be at $100 million. But today, you're only at $10 million. So how are you going to bridge that gap between now, in 2020, of $10 million and be a $100 million company in 10 more years? So that's going to involve a lot of strategy and understanding your current customer base, your current product set, your pricing, the long-term or lifetime value of your customers, what's your customer acquisition cost. So you're really going to have to dive into some of that data and that analytics to understand what the current state of your business is in order to understand what changes you need to make in order to make that revenue goal in 10 years. Because, as you know, time seems to fly by and that's going to be here before you know it. And if that's your goal in your business and you definitely want to hit it, then you will have to come up with a plan in order to understand what needs to happen now and every year in between then in order to obtain that goal. Here's the thing. That's what I do with my clients. We don't just start with a marketing strategy and just work forward. We're always working towards something. We're always working towards a goal. And most of the time we're working towards a short-term goal because there's so many changes that can happen in their business and with marketing and different options. But at least we're working on a plan and a goal and trying to achieve those objectives that ultimately that short-term goal is tied to a longer term goal. So that is part of our discussions, and we make sure that anything that we develop together is something that's going to help them, not just in the short term, but is actually going to help them achieve their long-term goals. The ninth and final biggest challenge of small businesses is scaling their business. This is going to be different for every company, but if you're a company that has plateaued and you really want to take your business to the next level, but you're challenged with how you can do that with your existing resources or with the budget or with the physical constraints of your building and where everybody works, then it's something that really needs to have some focus and identify how you can actually take steps to move in that direction of scaling your business. Now, you don't want to grow too fast because you're going to encounter some challenges along the way, like hiring the right people. And we talked about that being a challenge. So we don't want to encourage a situation like that. We want to actually build and scale the company at a pace that's going to work with the existing infrastructure to get to that next level, but without constraining and creating problems for the existing infrastructure. The fix to this problem is going to vary depending on your business, where you are in your business setup, and really what your goals are. So the answer to this question is it depends. How can you scale your business without breaking the constraints of your business infrastructure that negatively affects you and creates more problems than taking your business to the next level. So one thing that you can do is look at your existing customers and look at your existing products or your services. Look at the existing pricing, look at your existing employees. So really do an audit of your entire business and all the different nuances of finances and employees and products and services and everything in your business, and really understand, are all of them operating at their most optimal levels? Then look at how you can obsess over details, but only the right details. So an example would be if you're looking at your customers and you want to obsess over the right details and understand if they are operating, or your goals with your customers are operating at the most optimum level, then you want to look at all the criteria that you have set for lifetime value, customer acquisition costs. Are you getting them involved in the brand or behind the scenes or some of those things that's going to make it fun for them to stay a customer longer? When you look at those types of details, then you can better understand the long-term viability of them staying with you, and that can ultimately help you scale your business because you know that existing infrastructure with your existing customers is being taken care of. And when you start to grow, they'll have the confidence that you're not going to lose focus or lose sight of the importance they are to your brand and what got you to that point. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges that go beyond just these 9 challenges with small businesses. I wanted to focus on these because I think these are the areas that I can either help, or the areas I do help influence these other areas. So I wanted to touch on these and let you know that I am offering through the end of 2020 a 1-hour free marketing breakthrough call that I invite you to join me and let's talk through it. I know we're at the end of the year, there's challenges, everyone's trying to meet their year-end goals and objectives and get ready for 2021, which we all hope is going to be a better year. So if that is something of interest to you, it's a marketing breakthrough call, but it's focused on your business and how we can help increase brand awareness, which was the first thing that we talked about. Or it could be you're ready to scale your business and we could brainstorm ideas and look at how your marketing is affecting your existing customers, or even if you wanted to brainstorm ideas on how to make fun activities with your existing customers in order to secure a longer term solution that they will stay with you versus leave you, then we can do that as well. If you're interested in having this conversation with me, I included a link in the description that you can click, complete the form. Once I receive it, if we are a good fit, then I will send you a calendar link that we can coordinate our schedules and have that conversation within the next few days. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're not a subscriber, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when new videos are uploaded every single week, just on topics like this. If you are an existing subscriber, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming back and watching my videos, and I appreciate your support, so thank you very much.